equals the morning sun poured through the dust-coated windows of my small kitchen, illuminating the remnants of a life I barely recognized. I stood at the counter, cradling a steaming cup of coffee that smelled like burnt dreams. The scent mingled with the musty air of Cedar Hollow, a place that wrapped around me like an old, tattered blanket, familiar yet suffocating. I watched the rays of light dance across the chipped porcelain of my grandmother's coffee mug, a small piece of history that seemed to mock me with its permanence. Vivian, I whispered to myself, as if the sound of my own name could tether me to the present, to reality. My reflection in the window was a ghost of what I had once been. The lines around my eyes spoke of worry and sleepless nights, and my hair, though still dark, was laced with strands of silver that caught the light like stars on a dimly lit night. I felt every one of those years pressing down on my shoulders, each one a reminder of my failures, my betrayals, my fears. Get a grip. I took a sip of the acrid coffee, forcing down the bitterness like I had done with the bitterness of life. Outside, I could hear the familiar sounds of Cedar Hollow waking up, birds chirping, children laughing, and the distant rumble of a lawnmower starting its weekly serenade. I always felt like a spectator in my own life, as if everything continued moving while I was frozen in place. "Mom, are you coming?" The voice pulled me from my reverie. It was Emma, my youngest, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed and a look of impatience on her face. "The market opens in an hour." "Right, I forgot," I replied, trying to shake off the fog that had settled in my mind. Emma was 17, almost an adult, but still my baby in so many ways. Her presence was an anchor, yet it also served as a reminder of everything I had failed to protect. The weight of my past choices loomed like a dark cloud hovering over us. "Do you want to get fresh strawberries for that pie you keep talking about?" she asked, stepping further into the kitchen. Her braided hair swung slightly as she moved, the sunlight catching the strands like gold. "Maybe we could make it for dinner." "That sounds nice," I said with a weak smile. "You know how much I love strawberries." "You're just trying to butter me up." "Maybe," she responded with a grin that stretched across her face, brightening her otherwise serious features. "But I really do want pie, and you know how Dad loves it when you bake." That struck a chord deep within me. Dad, the word felt like a blade that cut straight through the facade I had built. Memories flooded back, Mom's laughter, those long nights filled with stories, and the warmth of family that now felt so far away. "Let's get what we need and we'll whip it up together," I said, pushing the memories aside like old paper. As we stepped out of the house, the world seemed to greet us with arms wide open, uncaring about the turmoil that swirled within me. Cedar Hollow was quaint, its streets lined with maple trees that stood guard like loyal sentinels. The air carried the sweetness of early summer, heavy and lush, filled with the promise of long, lazy days ahead. Yet beneath that bright facade, I could still feel the shadows lurking. The shadows that came from the shattered remains of a friendship and the betrayal that cut deeper than any knife. "Hey, I ran into Mrs. Foster yesterday. She says you should take a look at the old barn. Apparently some of that wood could be reused," Emma said, pulling me from my thoughts again. I nodded, remembering how the barn had once been a place of laughter and summer adventures. "If you want to go back to the barn later, we can," I suggested, aware of my own inner reluctance. The barn had once belonged to my childhood friend Sarah. We had made promises there, promises I had failed to keep. But we should probably head to the market first. I could see the market tent in the distance, vibrant and colorful with green and red awnings flapping lightly in the breeze. The anticipation mixed with dread twisted in my stomach, an unsettling reminder of the last time I had walked through those stalls. Sarah's voice echoed in my mind as she had walked beside me, her laughter ringing like a melody, innocent and carefree before everything had changed. "Just like old times, huh?" But it was not like old times, not at all. As we approached, the familiar faces of our neighbors greeted us, some giving warm smiles while others glanced away, their gazes betraying a mix of curiosity and pity. Cedar Hollow had a way of keeping secrets, but I felt everyone knew my business. They whispered behind closed doors, drawing conclusions like it was a town pastime. "Mom, stop scowling," Emma said, lightening the atmosphere with a playful nudge. "It's not like they can smell guilt or something." "Yet here I am, a walking emblem of guilt," I replied, trying to smile though it felt like a thin veil over the truth. I forced my eyes to scan the market, looking for distraction. Vendors were setting out their produce, men and women shouting over each other, eager to sell. "Look, fresh tomatoes, let's grab some." Together, we wandered through the stalls, seeking out the freshest fruits and veggies, taking in the colors and scents as Emma chatted with a local farmer about the best way to grow pumpkins, her excitement tangible. I found solace in her youth, her optimism allowing me temporary respite from the tangled mass of negativity in my mind. After we had gathered our goods, we stood in line to pay. The man at the register wore a kind smile that hinted at years of familiarity. "Good morning, Vivian." It's been a while since I've seen you, he said, ringing up our items. You should come around more often. Been busy, I replied, forcing the words out. Life, his gaze softened. I get it, maybe we can fix that. We have a community barbecue next weekend, you should come. Yeah, maybe, I trailed off, feeling the weight of expectation. A barbecue meant faces I had avoided, conversations I dreaded. The idea of mingling, laughing, and pretending felt like a climb up a steep hill with rocks jutting from the earth, each one a reminder of my past and the mistakes that came tumbling down with me. Mom, we should totally go. It'll be fun, Emma piped up, her eyes gleaming with excitement. I'll help you make a killer pasta salad. We can ask Sarah if she wants to join. At the mention of Sarah, my heart dropped like a stone. I forced a smile and turned away, trying to shake off the tension that coiled around my chest like a vice. I might just sit this one out. What, seriously? Emma frowned, confusion swirling in her eyes. Why, I thought we could reconnect with some friends. Friends, right? I muttered. Friends. The mere mention twisted a knot in my stomach. How could I face her? How could I pretend that everything hadn't fallen apart like a house of cards? Maybe missing it would be for the best. Mom, please, she pleaded. You can't avoid people forever, just go have fun. I want us to have a good time together like we used to. Emma, it's complicated, I finally admitted, the truth oozing through the cracks of my carefully constructed facade. You just don't understand. Everybody has complications, Mom, she replied, her voice softening. You're not the only one who has to deal with stuff. Just try, okay, for me? And what if it goes wrong? I snapped, surprising myself with the fierceness of my voice. Then it goes wrong, she shot back, her frustration simmering just below the surface. But at least you tried, isn't that what matters? I let out a heavy breath, the tension dissipating a little, and I looked into her eyes, searching for understanding amid my turmoil. You are wise beyond your years, Emma. Just promise me you will think about it, she said, a slight smile returning to her face. I met her gaze, and for a moment, the weight of my past lifted, replaced by a flicker of hope. The hope that maybe, just maybe, I could find my way back into the world I had shut out. As we walked toward the exit of the market, hand in hand like we used to, I could not shake the feeling that I was pushing against a tide I could not see. But perhaps deep down, I knew that more than trying to reconnect with Sarah, the real battle was within myself. A battle against forgiveness, against vulnerability, against facing the ghosts of the life I had lost. It would be a long journey, and as we stepped outside, I could sense everything shifting. I could feel the storm lurking on the horizon. I just had to figure out what part of it was mine to control, and what part was going to break everything apart all over again. Cedar Hollow was still my home, but it had become a treacherous landscape with memories sharp as knives. And every step moved me closer to the reckoning. I could no longer avoid the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over Cedar Hollow as I stood in front of my modest two-story home. The familiar scent of jasmine wrapped itself around me like a warm embrace, but it did little to soothe the storm brewing inside. I took a deep breath, inhaling the fragrant air, yet the tension knotting my stomach seemed to tighten with each passing moment. The unease was palpable. It felt as if the earth itself understood the weight of my thoughts. I had spent years nursing quiet resentments, but tonight would mark the beginning of my reckoning. As I entered the house, I glanced around the living room, cluttered with family photos and mementos from happier times. There was a time when laughter filled these walls, a time when life felt uncomplicated, before betrayal leaked into my heart like poison. I could still hear the haunting echo of my husband David's voice, deep and reassuring, guiding me through the day-to-day chaos. We can fix anything, Vivian, he'd often say, his cobalt eyes sparkling with confidence. I wished he'd been right. Vivian, are you up there? I heard my daughter, Chloe, call from the second floor. Her voice was an anchor in the storm, drawing me up the wooden staircase, each step creaking under my weight. I found her sitting on her bed, surrounded by a flurry of schoolbooks, her brow furrowed in concentration. At 16, Chloe was a whirlwind of potential, her youthful optimism contrasting sharply with my deepening pessimism. What's on your mind? I asked, flopping down on the edge of her bed. The comforter was soft beneath me, but the dread I felt barely allowed me to enjoy the moment. Just history stuff, I have a quiz tomorrow, she mumbled, scribbling down something in her notebook. She looked up at me, her hazel eyes narrowing slightly. You look stressed, Mom. Is everything okay? I hesitated, 1,000 thoughts colliding in my mind as I decided just how much to share. It's just, a lot is happening with the neighborhood association. You know how I've been trying to keep everything afloat down at the community center? Chloe nodded slowly, her expression shifting from concern to curiosity. Do you want to talk about it? You can trust me, I should have appreciated the concern from my daughter, but my instincts warned me to tread carefully. It's just some drama with the park renovation. You know how some of the neighbors are. They have strong opinions about everything. I'm just trying to do my best. Chloe rolled her eyes playfully. Mom, you always do your best. That's why everyone loves you. People love me, huh? Well, that's sweet, but love has its limits, I said, trying to keep my tone light, though the darkness hung heavy over my thoughts. Okay, but seriously, have you thought about talking to Miss Henderson? She might have some experience managing all this type of conflict, Chloe suggested. I appreciated her faith in my abilities, but the thought of Miss Henderson's meddling made my skin crawl. Or maybe could you try to just ignore the negative, focus on the positives? I chuckled lightly. Ah, the infamous ignore it and it will go away strategy. Isn't that how they handle the budget crises in Washington? Chloe laughed, her mirth cutting through the tension like a knife. You know, that might not actually be that far off. With a smile tugging at my lips, I felt a sense of calm wash over me, if only for a moment. You're a lot smarter than I give you credit for, Chloe. Just then the doorbell rang, harsh and unannounced, sending a jolt through me. My nerves tingled as I stood up. I will go see who it is. I strolled toward the front door, the wood cool beneath my fingertips as I gripped the handle. Whoever stood outside was about to unknowingly step into the chaos of my plans. Swinging the door open, I was met by a familiar face, a face I loathed with every fiber of my being. Rachel Finch stood there, her wide grin all too smug, her carefully coiffed golden hair shimmering in the fading light. Rachel had always excelled at being the most popular person in town, her social prowess both alluring and infuriating. She exuded an air of confidence, always knowing how to navigate the tricky waters of Cedar Hall's elite like the sleek swan she pretended to be. I wondered if she felt me glaring, pinning her with my gaze like a butterfly to a board. Vivian, darling, are you busy? I just thought I would drop by and see how things were going with the park project. Her voice dripped with saccharine sweetness, a stark contrast to the disdain gnawing in my gut. I was just about to prepare dinner, I replied curtly. What's the real reason you're here, Rachel? I know you're not one to just drop by for a friendly chat. Rachel feigned surprise, placing her hand over her heart as though offended. Why, whatever do you mean? I thought our little community project was our way of keeping the lines of communication open. Or have the rumors not reached you? Her gaze flickered with a barely concealed malice. What rumors? I asked, crossing my arms. I already knew the answer, but I wanted to see if she would fess up or squirm under the weight of her own deceitful tongue. Oh, you know, the whispers about the park funding. Are you sure it's safe in your hands? Some people are worried. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. I've heard stories, Vivian, stories about mishandling funds, and let's just say, people are starting to lose their patience with you. My pulse quickened, but I struggled to keep a neutral expression. If you believe the gossip mill and not the truth, then you and those some people will be disappointed, Rachel. You shouldn't let your envy blind you to what we could accomplish for this community. Envy? Oh dear, you seem to misunderstand. She waved a hand dismissively, but it was a weak gesture. I simply mean to protect the community from miscalculations. Transparency is important. Is that so? I said, my voice lowering dramatically. And what better way to create transparency than through malicious rumors? I suggest you keep my name out of your mouth, Rachel. I'm not the enemy here, she said, her tone cold and calculating. But if you insist on ignoring the warnings, I may have to let others know about your missteps. Threats won't scare me, Rachel, I replied, deliberately calm. You've come into my home with a smile while plotting behind my back. If there is anyone who should be worried, it is you. With those words, I turned on my heel and walked back inside, closing the door firmly behind me, cutting off her startled expression. I leaned against the door, feeling my heart hammering in my chest. Rage coursed through me like wildfire, blending with the determination I had been clinging to. I needed to act, to finally wrest back the control I had lost. Chloe appeared at the top of the stairs, curiosity written across her face. Who was it? Just Rachel being herself, I muttered, my throat dry. We might have to do some damage control, that's all. That woman drives me nuts, Chloe replied, rolling her eyes. What an annoying busybody. Can you just ignore her? She loves this stuff. I cannot ignore it any longer, I whispered, more to myself than to her. I straightened my back, finding resolve within me. It is time for her to learn that I'm not an easy target anymore. Mom, you need to relax. She feeds off drama and you know it. Maybe just kick her out next time. No, Chloe, this is bigger than that. I need a plan, I said, my mind racing as I paced the living room back and forth, feeling the energy crackle between my fingertips. Rachel thinks she can intimidate me, bullying me into silence, but she is wrong. We stood silently for a moment, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. My mind whirred as I felt clarity washing over me, stemming from the steady resolve settling in my chest. You'll help me, right? I asked, my eyes locking onto Chloe's. Of course, she replied, enthusiasm breaking through her initial hesitation. Her words sparked something inside me. Together, we would forge a plan. The last pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fall into place. In preparation for the gathering storm ahead, I could almost hear the thunder rumbling in the distance, growing closer. It felt exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. As dusk fell, I pored over papers and photos from our community project, plotting next moves like a general mapping out his strategy. Chloe helped by gathering together the information we needed, her youthful energy invigorating my thoughts. We exchanged ideas back and forth, laughing about the absurdity of it all. At one point, we even started designing flyers for a community meeting to rally support. The walls of my home, once feeling so heavy with past burdens, now stood witness to the birth of something entirely new. A sisterhood of sorts, a mother and daughter united against a common enemy. With every word and every decision, the path to revenge became clearer to me. I felt empowered, my spirit no longer caged but free to soar and take back everything I had lost. The night was deepening, and the world around us darkened, but we were alive with purpose. I could hardly wait to unleash a storm that would leave Cedar Hollow thoroughly shaken. With newfound resolve and Chloe by my side, the sweetest revenge was not only on the horizon. It was coming for Rachel Finch. The soft sunlight filtered through the large bay windows of my living room, casting elongated shadows across the faded carpet. It was early afternoon, and the house was quiet, echoing with the distant sounds of Cedar Hollow, a town that had once felt like home but now felt like a prison. My heart raced as I wrestled with the emotions, nerves dancing in my stomach like a swarm of angry hornets. Today was the day I was going to confront the enemy I had been waiting for, the one who had taken everything from me. I glanced at the clock on the wall, its steady ticking the only sound filling the stillness. The hands moved sluggishly, and I could feel each moment crawl along, reminding me of all that I had lost. "Get it together, Vivian," I muttered to myself, raising my shaky hands to smooth down my hair before forcing my feet to propel me to the front door. I took a deep breath, inhaling the chill of the autumn air mixed with the faint smell of burning leaves. I stepped outside, feeling the warmth from the sun wrap around me, almost coaxing me into a semblance of calm. The lively sounds of the neighborhood buzzed as children played and dogs barked in the distance, a stark contrast to the turmoil residing in my mind. "What am I even doing?" I asked myself, squaring my shoulders as I approached the white picket fence that bordered my property. Each step echoed with the memories of laughter that once filled this very space. I crossed the street and made my way towards the house at the end of the block, the house that had become a symbol of my pain, resentment, and the bloody battle I was about to wage. My heart hammered in my chest as I reached the driveway, each beat a reminder of everything I wanted to reclaim. I paused, staring up at the two-story structure that loomed over me. The dark blue paint was peeling in patches, and the yard, once a vibrant landscape of wildflowers, was now overgrown with weeds. This was it. I took one last deep breath before stepping forward and ringing the doorbell. The sound echoed in my ears, and for a moment I wondered if I should have done more, planned more. "Courage, Vivian," I whispered as I heard footsteps approaching. The door creaked open, and there he was, Mark Donovan, my old friend turned arch-nemesis. He looked as if he had aged a decade since the last time we had crossed paths. His hair was receding, streaked with gray, and he wore a puzzled expression that quickly morphed into a defensive glare. "Vivian," he said, his voice gruff, "what do you want?" "I want to talk," I replied, my voice steady, but I could feel the tremor beneath the surface. "Talk? After all this time, you think there is anything left to say?" He folded his arms across his chest, blocking my view of the inside of the house. His posture radiated hostility, and it was infuriating. "You don't get to make that decision, Mark," I shot back, feeling the anger boiling inside me. "You have no idea how much I have been through because of you." "You think you are the only one who lost something," he countered, raising an eyebrow. "I had to rebuild my life after you left. There's always collateral damage in war, Vivian." "Is that what you call it, war?" I spat, my voice rising. "You took everything from me. My job, my friends, even the trust of my own family. You are the reason my life fell apart." Mark stepped back slightly, surprise flickering in his eyes, but he quickly masked it with stubbornness. "And what do you think talking will accomplish? You think I need your pity?" "This isn't about pity," I shouted. "This is about closure. This is about letting you know that I am not the broken person you left behind. I will not let you drown me again." Mark stared at me, an unreadable expression crossing his face. "You think you have it all figured out now?" He let out a humorless laugh. "You're just as lost as you were before. All of those years I spent trying to forget you, to move on." "You moved on?" I asked, incredulous. "You took everything I cared about. You destroyed my career. I don't owe you an explanation, Vivian," he interrupted, his voice a low growl. There was a spark of the old Mark in him, the one I had once called my best friend, the one I had trusted. "You think you can show up here and demand answers?" "I know what you did," I said, my voice softer but firm. "I know about the lies, the deceit. You played me like a puppet, and now it's your turn to face the consequences." He shook his head, his expression darkening. "What consequences? You think I am afraid of your little threats?" His arrogance fueled a fire within me. The heat radiated off my skin as I stepped closer, narrowing the space between us. "I know you are hiding something," I said, each word deliberate. "And sooner or later, everyone else will too. You think this will end with your petty deception?" He took a step back, bristling under the weight of my choice of words. "Maybe you should have thought twice before making wild accusations. You really don't know when to stop, do you? You never understood the consequences of your actions, I pressed on, the memories flooding back like an unstoppable tide. You thought that your dreams were worth my destruction. I remember every moment and I will make sure everyone else remembers too. Mark's expression hardened and for a brief moment the tension hung thick in the air, thick as smoke. You think you can just ruin me, Vivian? You did that to yourself, I insisted, feeling emboldened. I am simply giving you a taste of your own medicine. He turned and walked a few paces into the house, his shoulders stiff and tense. You won't get away with this, he called back, glancing over his shoulder. It's too late for you to change things. I don't need to change anything, Mark, I retorted, swallowing hard. I just need to show everyone the real you. They deserve to know. His eyes narrowed dangerously. You think you're fighting a battle for justice. This is not some Hollywood movie, Vivian. You are not some superhero. My heart was pounding against my ribcage, but with each beat, I felt more powerful. Maybe you should think of me as the villain in your story because that is exactly what I will be. You're a fool, Mark hissed, clenching his jaw. I will make sure you regret this. You have no idea what I am capable of, I whispered, my voice calm but laced with a chilling edge, surprising even myself. I am tired of living in your shadow, Mark. I will expose you and you will be the one regretting it. Mark's face was a mix of anger and fear, and for the first time I saw the monster I had been telling myself he was all along. Get out of my house, he said, and I could tell he was fighting to keep his fraying composure. I don't need to justify myself to a failure. I couldn't leave, I wasn't finished. I've got a plan, Mark, I said, my voice steady. I don't need to be alone in this fight anymore. There are others like me who want their voices heard. We all deserve the truth. His eyes widened in shock as he stepped back into the house, almost as if he was afraid of what I might unleash. You think you can gather a dozen disheartened souls and wage war against me? The dismissive tone in his voice was like sandpaper against my raw emotions. That's your plan? Not just a dozen, I replied, my heart racing. I have connections now, people you didn't bother about when you were too busy backstabbing me. Mark swallowed hard, his face paling as the weight of my words settled in. You are bluffing, he said hesitantly, his bravado fading. You don't have the resources. You're wrong, I shot back, keeping my voice even, fighting against the trembling urge to yell. I have everything I need to make you pay for your betrayal. With a sharp movement, I turned on my heel and walked toward the driveway, giving him one last look over my shoulder. Enjoy your little victory while it lasts, Mark. This war has only just begun. As I left his presence, I felt a wave of exhilaration mixed with dread. The taste of confrontation lingered, spicy and raw, invigorating yet terrifying. I could sense the shift within myself, a tidal wave transforming my desperation into determination. I stepped off his property, the rage and disappointment morphing into strategy as I imagined how I could mobilize everything I had planned to do next. My heart quickened at the thought of the people who had been wronged, their stories waiting to be told, to rise against the monster that had haunted not just mine but many lives. This was no longer just about me. It was a battle for every person he had betrayed, loud and echoing through the halls of our once shared lives. Cedar Hollow may seem quiet on the surface, but there was untapped fury brewing beneath. My head spun with possibilities as I hastened back home, a fire ignited in my chest. No longer would I be silenced, hidden in the dark corners of my past. I was no longer just Vivian Hale, a victim of betrayal. I was the storm rolling in, formidable and relentless, ready to reclaim what was rightfully mine. The air in Cedar Hollow felt heavy, like a blanket soaked in anticipation, as I prepared for the confrontation I had been dreading yet desperately anticipating. I stood in my kitchen, the sunlight filtering through the lace curtains, casting delicate patterns on the old wooden table where I had sat with my mother many summers ago. Her laughter echoed in my memory, a bright note in my otherwise dark thoughts. I picked up the chipped coffee mug that had once belonged to her, feeling the smoothness against my fingers as I took a deep breath, trying to summon the courage needed for what was to come. I glanced out the window at the leafless trees, their branches grasping at the sky like skeletal fingers, naked and vulnerable, much like I felt. Vivian, came a voice suddenly from behind me. I turned to see my only son, Lucas, standing in the doorway, a look of concern plastered across his face. He was 20 and had grown into a young man who always seemed to see through my bravado and cold demeanor. His brown hair was tousled, and he had that familiar look, the one that hinted he was both exasperated and worried about me. "What are you doing here?" he asked, stepping into the room, his voice tinged with an urgency I knew all too well. "Just thinking," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Just gathering my thoughts for tonight." I turned my back to him, trying to ignore the way his eyes pinched in worry. Why couldn't he understand? This was something I had to do. "You know how it is, right?" Leonard kept popping into my head, though, the way he had smirked after he stole my business and then my dignity as if it were his right. I could still remember the way he held the boardroom in his grip, sucking the life right out of my dreams in front of the entire committee. It would not be so easy for him tonight. This was my moment. Mom, you shouldn't. Lucas, please, I interrupted, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. You don't know what he did. I need to face him. It's the only way I can move on. You can move on without confronting him, he replied, crossing his arms as he leaned back against the doorframe. You don't need to do this. A silence stretched between us as I glanced around the kitchen, taking in the familiar signs of home. The slight creak of the hardwood floors and the smell of freshly brewed coffee played a beautiful lullaby that softened my heart even as I clenched it tightly. You wouldn't understand the weight of this. I have spent too many years feeling powerless because of him, I admitted softly, voicing what I had buried for far too long. Then find another way to regain that power, he urged, though there was a hint of resignation in his tone. This might just make things worse. No, I turned to face him fully, my heart racing. This time I control the narrative. This time Leonard will pay for what he has done to me. The years of torment, the lies. I felt the tremors of rage pulse through me like a current, inviting me to feel alive once again. I need closure, Lucas. Mom, he said, his brow furrowed with a mixture of anger and worry. If you go through with this, it won't end well. You have no idea how he is going to react. I sighed, knowing Lucas was right in his own way but too naive to fully grasp the depths of my resolve. It doesn't matter. He has had his way for too long. I cannot keep living in the shadow of his lies. I felt my phone vibrate against the table, snapping both of us out of the moment. I picked it up and glanced at the screen. The message was from Mia, my old friend and confidant. Are you ready for tonight? Remember, you have the upper hand. I couldn't help but smile at the encouragement from Mia. See, I have support, I said, locking eyes with Lucas. This is bigger than me. It's about taking back what's mine. Support isn't always a good thing, Mom, he remarked carefully. Sometimes it just makes it easier to do something stupid. Stupid or not, I am resolved, I said with a firmness I hoped was reassuring. I knew I sounded aggressive, but it came from a place of years of bitterness and betrayal, thickening in my throat with the last syllable. Okay, he said softly. But promise me one thing, promise that you will think this through, don't let the rage blind you. I took a long breath, studying his earnest expression, wishing I could reassure him fully, but the truth was buried too deep within me like a forgotten treasure. I promise, but I need tonight, bud. As he walked away, I felt the pit in my stomach churn. What would happen? The thought of seeing Leonard, of facing my past, was terrifying. Every fiber of my being ached with anticipation and a kind of sick thrill. Hours passed slowly as the late afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, painting a haunting orange glow that pulsed through the kitchen. I paced, each tick of the clock feeling like a countdown to a battlefield, where I had finally mustered my courage and prepared my weapons. The kitchen table became my altar, where I laid out the papers that represented everything he had stolen from me. A divorce settlement filled with deceitful clauses, contracts that sealed my fate, and letters that proved he had laid ruin to my work and dreams. Just as the shadows grew long, a buzz broke through my thoughts again. This time it was an alert from the group chat I shared with Mia and a few other old friends. Just got here, you all set? It took me a moment to process, then I promptly fingered a reply. On my way, wish me luck. Lucky? I echoed to myself, shaking my head as I combined the rough edges of determination and anxiety swelling in my chest. I jumped at the sound of my phone vibrating again. It was Mia's response. You don't need luck, you need fire, remember your fire, Vive. With one final glance in the mirror, I examined my reflection. A woman tempered by years of silent suffering, but now ready to let those storms rage forth. I slipped into my favorite black dress, the one that hugged my curves in all the right places, making me feel fierce and unyielding. I applied a bold red lipstick as if it were armor. Tonight the world will see you, Vivian, I murmured to my reflection. The drive to the venue where we had arranged to meet Leonard felt surreal. The car hummed beneath me, the road stretching endlessly ahead as I wrestled with the thoughts that flared to life like smoke from a fire, dizzying and catching me off guard. A mixture of fear and power surged through my veins. You can do this. Just take it one step at a time, I whispered softly to myself, gripping the steering wheel tightly as I cut through the darkening landscape. I arrived just a little early, pulling into the gravel parking area next to a derelict building that once thrived with laughter and shared moments, now cloaked in despair, much like my heart. As I stepped out, the chill of the night air greeted me, instantly bracing me against the looming uncertainty. I walked purposefully toward the entrance, where flickering lights struggled against the gloom. All or nothing, especially tonight, I muttered, my heels clicking against the pavement, echoing in the eerie silence. The heavy wooden door creaked open, revealing an expansive hall that shimmered dimly under the soft glow of chandeliers. Tables dressed in crisp white linen were arranged neatly, though only a few lonely figures occupied the spaces. There he was, Leonard, sitting at the far end, his back to me, laughing as if the past years had never pushed us apart. He looked different from my memories, older, perhaps more fragile, yet somehow monstrous in his arrogance. As if he could sense me, Leonard turned, his laughter dying in an abrupt gasp as our eyes met across the distance. Vivian, he said, the name clinging to his lips like bitter wine. I was wondering when you would show up. Standing firm, my heart racing like a wild animal, I licked my dry lips as I strode toward him, fueled by every wound he had inflicted. Here I am, Leonard, we need to talk. His expression shifted to one of feigned nonchalance, but I saw through it. Is this really how you want to spend your evening? You know we could settle this like adults. I scoffed, the bitterness bubbling up, mingling dangerously with my determination. Why would I want to sit and discuss while you continue to spin your web of lies? That is not why I am here. From a distance, I could almost see the wheels turning in his mind as he weighed his options. You think shouting and making a scene is going to change anything? He challenged, trying to mask the tremor in his voice with bravado. Not shouting, just the truth, I declared, pacing around the table, deliberately blocking him off from any escape. You took everything from me, Leonard, my business, my dignity, my life. You found a way to wring out every ounce of joy, and I am tired of pretending as if it did not matter. His laughter rumbled again, amused yet tinged with an edge. I did what anyone would have done in my shoes. This is just business, darling. Business, I spat, heat flooding my cheeks. It was never just business for you, and we both know it. It was personal. You destroyed me. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms, dismissing my outburst with a smirk. Oh, sweetheart, don't act surprised. You were always too soft for the cutthroat world we inhabit. You just needed to see what the real game looked like. No, Leonard, I insisted, my voice steady despite the storm surging within. I needed to see you for who you really are. At that moment, the hall felt suffocating, the tension thickening the air between us. And what is that? He asked, feigning curiosity while his smirk betrayed an air of false confidence. Someone who never learned how to lose. Someone who wallows in the destruction he leaves behind just to feel powerful. But tonight, Leonard, you are not the king, I said, taking a bold step forward, my heart racing. Tonight, I finally hold the power. His expression soured, something primal igniting behind his eyes. You think you have power over me? That is hilarious. This isn't a fairy tale. I own you, Vivian. You cannot unravel the lies without losing everything. That's where you're wrong, I replied, barely containing my triumph as I pulled out the files from my bag, the contracts, the papers, the evidence of his deceit. Each piece of paper here tells the story of how small you really are, of how a ticking bomb of your decisions has finally birthed an explosion that will unravel everything you built on my back. His eyes widened, recognition dawning on him as he reached for the papers, but I snatched them away, shaking my head. I won't let you twist this game anymore, Leonard. I have the evidence. I am ready to fight until my last breath. You want to go to war? Then let's go. In those moments, it felt like a dam had burst, the relentless tide of my pain surging forth as I faced him. I was no longer the woman caged by his shadow. I was Vivian Hale, determined to reclaim the fragments of my life. In that moment of confrontation, the world faded away, and it was just me and the man who had haunted my dreams for far too long. It was raw, powerful, and electrifying, a watershed moment that would either empower or consume me. Yet deep down, I could feel a fire gathering strength, rising through my veins like an unstoppable force. Leonard would learn once, and for all that the unyielding spirit of a woman scorned should never be underestimated. I stood at the edge of my garden, the crisp autumn air nipping at my skin as I stared down the path that had once felt like home. The trees above were a riot of fire-colored leaves, the ground beneath them a tapestry of rust and gold. It was as if nature herself was celebrating the moment I had fought so hard to reclaim. My heart raced, each beat reminding me of the journey I had been on, a journey of loss, betrayal, and now, finally, retribution. I looked back at my house, the place I had poured my heart and soul into. After the past few chaotic weeks, standing here felt surreal. I had dreamed of this moment for so long, and now it was finally here, but I was still grappling with how to move forward. Just then, I heard the crunch of gravel. Turning my head, I saw him, Daniel. I felt a wave of mixed emotions, anger, but also an odd sense of relief. He was here to face me after all I had uncovered. Dressed in the same dark suit he had worn when he betrayed me, he looked out of place in my garden, a stranger among the vibrant colors of my restoration. Vivian. His voice was steady, but I could see the tremor in his hands as they were tucked into his pockets. I didn't think you would confront me. I crossed my arms, my brow furrowing. And why wouldn't I? After everything you did, what do you want from me? He asked, trying to sound unbothered, but I could hear the underlying tension in his voice. The garden smelled sweet, a blend of honeysuckle and withering foliage, toothpicks of smoke curling up from a neighbor's late afternoon fire. Yet here I was, feeling sick to my stomach with every breath that I took. I want you to understand what you lost, Daniel. I stepped closer, determination pushing me forward, the crunch of fallen leaves beneath my feet sounding like a countdown. You had it all and you threw it away for a moment's pleasure. Do you even know how it felt to be betrayed by someone I trusted completely? My words hung in the air between us, sharp and heavy. His expression shifted, guilt etching lines across his forehead. I was stupid, Vivian. I didn't value what we had, but you have to believe me when I say that it was a mistake, a big one. I cannot change the past, I can only try to move forward. His eyes pleaded with me, desperate for forgiveness. Move forward, do you really think it is that simple? The fire in my chest was rising, the rage finally spilling over as I thought of the nights I had cried myself to sleep, the days I had questioned my worth, my life, my everything because of his betrayal. You just don't get it, do you? It's not just a matter of forgiveness, of moving on. It's about understanding the depths of your actions. I shook my head, feeling the sticky warmth of tears gathering at the corners of my eyes, but I would not let them fall. I put everything into this garden, Daniel. Every seed planted is a piece of me, and I am not letting you take that away, too. He stepped forward as if trying to bridge the gap between us. I want to help you, Vivian. I promise I will make amends. You have no idea how much I miss you. I rolled my eyes, the cringeworthy sincerity of his words grating against my raw emotions. Missing me doesn't fix what you did. You thought of me like a spare tire, only good when everything else fell apart. He dropped his gaze, shame flushing his cheeks. You're right, I treated you like an option, not the priority you were. You deserved more, you deserve more. I raised an eyebrow, a smirk creeping onto my lips. More, is that what you think I need from you? I don't need you, Daniel. I'm more than okay on my own. My mind was racing, battling with the feelings that fought to emerge. The lavender plants I had nurtured through summer were starting to wilt, and I couldn't help but see myself in them. What once was beauty now fading because of neglect. You don't mean that, he said, a hint of desperation slipping into his voice. Please, Vivian, I am willing to do anything to make this right. You think this was easy for me. I lost everything, too. I was stupid. Have mercy, I paused, letting his words wash over me. The chaos of emotions swirled inside like a storm beating against the window of my heart. I wanted to scream, to cry, to reach out and shake him until he understood not just the consequences of his actions, but the hurt resounding through my life since that day. Anything? I challenged, my tone taking on an edge. What are you willing to give up? Your pride, your stubbornness? I would give up anything, he insisted, taking a cautious step toward me as if testing the waters. I would turn back time if I could. I would scream your name from the rooftops to make you understand how sorry I am. You think this is just about you saying sorry? You want me to forgive you just because you feel bad? No, Daniel, this is about consequences. My fists clenched, nails pressing into the palms of my hands. I haven't just lost you. I lost my friends, my community. They all turned their backs on me because of you. They thought I was the fool. His face paled, and I realized the truth struck him hard. Vivian, I didn't know things had gone that far. I was so wrapped up in my own shame. I never wanted to hurt you. I was selfish. I breathed heavily, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. Selfish, that's an understatement. You shattered the lives of everyone around you. My friends lost faith in me. I lost faith in myself. What do you want me to do? The question hung heavily in the air, laden with regret. Do you want me to beg for your forgiveness? To kneel at your feet? I just want you back in my life. I stared at him, my emotions battling each other. Part of me wanted to tell him to go to hell, that no amount of pleading would bring back those moments we had shared. But the other part, buried deep and wrapped in the warmth of history, longed for the connection we once had. You want me back? Then you need to earn it. The words slipped out before I could think, but it felt right. You have to show me you can change. Show me that you can stand by my side and help me rebuild what you broke. I will, he promised, his eyes lighting up with a spark of hope. Whatever it takes. Good, I said, feeling an odd sense of control surging through me. Then there is something you need to do first. Anything, he echoed, a sense of desperation creeping back into his voice. You need to own up to what you did. You need to go to the others, admit your faults, and ask for their forgiveness too. You need to make it right with everyone, not just me. His jaw set in determination. I will do it. I will face them. I watched him closely. A part of me was terrified he would back down at the first sign of confrontation. This is non-negotiable, Daniel. If you really care, you will do it. No more running, no more hiding. He nodded, a flicker of resolve shining in his eyes. I promise I will. I will talk to all of them no matter how hard it is. You need to mean it, I insisted, feeling the weight of the moment rest heavily on my shoulders. There is no going back. You have to fight for this. He stepped even closer, his eyes searching mine for sincerity. I will fight for you. I will fight for us. Bitter laughter bubbled to my lips. It was painful but somehow cleansing. Us? You think it will ever come back to that? You have a lot to prove before we can even think about us again. I turned slightly, looking at the garden I had cultivated with blood, sweat, and tears. Each flower represented not just a plant but my rage, my fight to survive, my healing process. You want to be in my life? Then help me. Show me I can count on you to be there when I need you. Show me you'll help me make this garden bloom again. I will, he said firmly. What do I need to do? Start by grabbing that rake and helping me gather these fallen leaves, I instructed, pointing toward a pile of scattered leaves along the path. The little things mattered, and this felt like the beginning of an understanding. It's not pretty work, but it is essential. I saw the flicker of doubt in his eyes before he nodded, the harsh lines of reality settling in. All right, he said, finally letting out a breath. In that moment, I knew that rebuilding was not just about forgiveness. It was also about actively making things right. Unfolding my arms, I stepped aside, allowing him space to join me in the tedious work of reclaiming what was mine. As he bent down, his movements tentative and careful, we began gathering leaves together, the sound of rustling foliage filling the air. You know, he said after a moment, his voice quiet but steady, I always admired how you turned this garden into a haven. It was your sanctuary. I glanced sideways at him, not sure if I should respond. It was a labor of love, I replied. It's more than just a garden, it symbolizes everything I fought for, and now, wow, here you are trying to help mend it to mend us. I want to help, he reiterated, voice earnest. I hope you can see that I mean it. We worked in silence for a little while, the only noise our breathing and the sound of crunching leaves beneath our feet. For a brief moment, I felt the past slip away. I could feel the sun on my skin, warm and comforting, and oddly enough, I began to enjoy the company amidst the familiar heartache. The colors around us glowed, ruffled by the breeze, and I recalled how strong I had been, how I had rebuilt myself from ashes. Vivian, Daniel said, breaking the silence, can we talk about us, about what comes next? I froze for a moment, leaning on the rake as I considered his words. You are jumping ahead, I replied, trying to keep my tone level. Right now, it's all about making things right with the others. The past is too deep for a simple conversation. You have to prove you changed. He sighed, frustration creeping into his voice. I know, but I want to hope. Hope without action is empty, I replied, the raspiness of my voice surprising even me. You have been hoping for too long. What do you want me to say? He challenged. I care and I will fight for what we had, but it seems you don't believe a word of it. Because you had your chance and you squandered it, I said, allowing the anger to seep into my voice. You have to earn my trust back, Daniel. That starts with showing me with honest action. I will, he repeated. But please, Vivian, do not shut me out. At that moment, I felt something flicker in my heart. Part of me wanted to let him in, to believe him, but another part held tightly to the pain he had caused. You shattered my trust, Daniel. It doesn't repair that easily. Trust is built in small moments. I felt the tears I had been holding begin to burn the corners of my eyes, but I stood firm. And these moments we are creating right now are the first steps. Proving yourself starts now. He nodded, finally beginning to understand the depth of my emotions. Then let us build together, step by step. In that moment of vulnerability, where regret lingered heavily between us, I felt hope draw close. As we raked the leaves together, side by side, I began to believe that perhaps, slowly, we could nurture something new from the remnants of the old. I could feel the sorrow in my heart starting to shift. It was still there, but it had found a place among the growth we were beginning to cultivate together. Each leaf we collected felt like a step toward clarity, toward healing. As the sun slid lower in the sky, casting golden rays across the garden, I decided that I could give him one more chance to prove himself, not just to me but also to the ghost of what we had once shared. The sunset painted the world around us, vibrant hues of orange and pink intermingled with the fading colors of autumn. Together, we were reclaiming our place, one leaf at a time.